Welcome, sir. How are you?
Hello, sir. Great to join. Sorry about the delays. I've managed to figure out how to be on this great show.
If anyone can do it with very, very little assistance, I know it'll be you, Nitin. So,
Thank you, sir.
welcome.
Are you?
Welcome.
Yes.
So,
Are you
of
saying
course,
I'm the Dasun Shanaka of Glance Live?
rock up at the last minute, having not bowled a ball the whole match. And you know what? 16, 21 runs. I'll do it. I'll get 2 wickets as well. We'll come to the Sri Lankan team, but I was just talking with the viewers about this guy on our screen. So for me, Nitin, and please feel free to weigh in whenever you want to. Obviously, when you score 210 in a one-day match, irrespective of the opposition, the conditions, and the series scoreline, you have done a huge favor to yourself to get further selection. Ishan Kishan, both in one-days and T20s last year, was one of those fringe players. At one point, he was the highest run getter for India at T20s, but then when the big names came back, he goes back into that pool. And we know what that pool is. Ab achhe ho, you're scoring runs, but boss, you do fall in line behind someone. He goes and gets 210. But it's the injury, the unfortunate situation that Rishabh Pant finds himself in has given a huge opportunity to someone like him. Do you think this guy is now, whenever Pant comes back, he'll come back. Until he comes back, is this guy now the number one white ball keeper batsman?
Yeah, I definitely feel so. Especially after the double hundred, I think he's earned himself the right to be the keeper. Also, unlike most of the other contenders, right, India seems to have this problem where a lot of the wicket-keeping options happen to be middle-order batsmen, right? Even Rishabh Pant, I know they're talking about trying and getting him to open and all of that. Ishan, he brings that extra dimension as an opener, also a left-handed bat, which helps. Also, a bit of a hitter, right? He's not someone who's ever going to get stuck in there. He's always looking to hit sixes. But for me, the clincher, especially in that first game, his wicket keeping was extraordinary. I thought he saved a lot of runs diving around behind the stumps. For me, that was the clincher. I think Rishabh Pant will have to earn his place back really in white ball cricket if and when he's back to playing. I think for now, and Sanju Samson's unfortunate injury as well means that there is one less contender. So yeah, Ishan definitely is my keeper.
The keeping, of course, I think we have to accept that he was very, very good. You're right, he was saving runs. But this picture we have here, the catch that he took running, I mean, he covered a lot of distance to hold that blinder, right? Not to say that Pant is not capable of doing that, but as a younger player, let's face it, as a slightly fitter player, you need to be setting the bar higher. And behind the stumps, he did it. But also the word you just used, you need a hitter, right? Now, it could have been argued until very recently that IPL teams especially had figured out how to bowl to Ishan Kishan, because after those two first matches, when I think he got 80 and 70 odd, the runs dried up because teams figured him out. But what he offers, Nitin, is that hitter role, which brings me to that somewhat uncomfortable question. 2022, I think India played 40 T20s, won I think 28 of them. But again, I'll take your view. My view is that when you fail to qualify for the Asia Cup final, yes, you get into the World Cup semi-finals, but when you're smashed in that way, the year has to be judged, chalo theek hai, bilateral mein jo kiya, you need to be judged on tournament basis. Does what Ishan Kishan offered this team, the hitter, as you so accurately said, does that mean that at some point that Rohit, Rahul Jodi will have to be separated? It's not a T20 World Cup year, but there is one coming up in 15, 18 months' time.
I think Tony has sent in a comment as well saying KL Rahul is sad because we had the entire discussion on wicket keepers and did not mention KL Rahul. I definitely feel that Jodi has to be separated. Mainly because we'll leave aside KL Rahul for a moment, but Rohit Sharma doesn't earn a spot in India's T20 team anymore. In fact, if you look at the last 2 or 3 years, he was not doing very well for Mumbai Indians either. Right?
Yep.
And in a team like Mumbai Indians, it didn't seem to matter.
For a web series, I was not available.
But he was still scoring for India in the bilateral series, like you said, right? And India generally does well in bilaterals for whatever reason. I think other teams don't end up sending their best squads to bilaterals, or they're tired, and India knows these conditions very well and all of that. So Rohit was doing reasonably well in those games. But after that World Cup, you could really see he was struggling to get the pace going. I think, yeah, Rohit definitely is a big question mark for me going forward in T20 cricket. And I think that's the call that the selectors also seem to have indirectly taken, because by making Hardik captain at this stage, I think it's a fair. They're doing their best to try and move on to the next chapter, right? I don't know how they will actually end up making those decisions eventually, but I think this is definitely a signal from them to the seniors that we're moving on.
When you're saying that, I have to smile, because we've all seen, you and I have seen, whenever this phase comes, whatever the player is, no matter the stature, of course, the higher the stature, it's always a very, very uncomfortable discussion. And I think Sandeep Patil aside, I can't recall any chairman of selectors actually even on record commenting that, yes, we attempted to have that dialogue. But on that note, I'm going to bring up a poll for our viewers here, which is exactly what you're talking about. Should Hardik Pandya lead India in T20Is? The answer for me is yes. I think Nitin will probably be on the same page. Viewers, you have 30 seconds on your lock screen to answer. Very simple. Either you click yes, either you click no. Again, I was seeing Ajay Jadeja gave this comment on CricBuzz yesterday. Why is Hardik Pandya, Nitin, why is he talking about changing things? Why does each captain who come and talk about changing? Now, I get theoretically where Ajay Jadeja came from, but I think DK also said it correctly, having just been part of this team to 6-7 weeks ago. It's about a change in mindset. Very, very small sample size, Nitin, in with Hardik Pandya to judge. But his comments, the way he smiles, the way he said that we want to give these youngsters room. He's not the first captain to say it, but I genuinely believe that under this guy, you may actually see that happening. How do you see Hardik Pandya? Because 2022 could have been a bad year, but he turned it into perhaps his greatest year. Coming back, staying fit, bowling, leading his IPL team to the title. Do you think that puts him as the best option to lead this team?
For want of better options, yes, definitely Hardik is up there, right? I would have said Rishabh Pant is probably also potentially captaincy material, except that, like we just mentioned, he's not even a certainty in the starting 11, right? Hardik, after winning the IPL with Gujarat Titans, and I really loved the way Gujarat went about their campaign, right? There was a bit of what MS Dhoni and team did in 2007, just the way Ashish Nehra and Hardik came together, and they were playing with a lot of joy, right? They were not getting bogged down by stats or records or reputation. They said, "Jo khelega hum khelte hain. Let's see what will happen," and they won the tournament, right? So I think it's time to go back to that kind of an approach. So Hardik definitely fits in there. So I have a couple more thoughts on Hardik, right? So the first one is, people are asking, or Ajay Jadeja is asking, why is Hardik changing something? If you saw the way India played in the World Cup, definitely changes were required, right? We are playing T20s the way T20s, if they existed in the 90s, would have been played. T20s did not even exist in the 90s, right? But we are playing a 90s version of T20 in that World Cup with, too much of anchoring happening, and you don't really have answers. The fielding is so bad, the fitness levels are so low. You really have to change things around, right? If that's the template. So yes, full marks to Hardik there or rather full support to Hardik and team for trying to change the way they approach T20 cricket. That said, early signs, I know it's too early to judge and all of that. I see that Hardik also tends to wear his emotion quite a bit on his sleeve, right? You saw his reaction when, I know that Arshdeep had a terrible day yesterday, right? There's no mincing words, too many no balls and all of that. But as a captain, when, your professional bowler, someone who has obviously done well for the country, has done well for other teams at different levels to make it this high, he's obviously not bowling no balls because he doesn't know how to not bowl no balls, right? It's just something that's happening on the field on that day. It's very important for a captain to keep that in mind in the way he reacts. And it wasn't just that. I think there have been other occasions. The occasional misfield, for instance, Yuzvendra Chahal misfielded in the first game. You saw Hardik's reaction wasn't... I'm not expecting him to be pleasant when he reacts to a misfield or to mistakes on the field. But I do feel that him tempering in his emotions a little bit more, at least in these early days, mistakes will happen. I think Hardik is the right guy to lead the team, but I think he has some way to go as well before he figures out his groove as a captain.
What did you make of his post-match comment? I mean, you just mentioned it without actually saying what he did. But for the benefit of our viewers, he was referring to those. No, Arshdeep Singh bowled 5 no balls. Now, no bowler wants to do it, but it has become a problem with Arshdeep Singh, as good as he was. I mean, just to sidestep, for me, he was the bowler of the year last year for India. But when you bowl 5 no balls, Nitin, yes, you open yourself up to criticism from the captain. But for him to come out on a public platform and say it's a crime, he needs to go back and learn, it can be taken two ways. It can be seen, okay, he's acknowledging a problem. He's not giving a cliche statement like Rohit and Kohli would have done, but also he's not backing, or as you said, understanding that his bowler just had a bad day and bad days are going to come. Just to link that with what you said to wearing his emotion on his sleeve. Early days, but how much should we look into that comment? It's a big one for me.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, I thought he dwelt a little more on the no balls than he probably should have. I thought Rahul Dravid's comments were a little more equanimous, for want of a better word, right? It is a young team, mistakes will happen. In fact, even senior bowlers bowl no balls, right? Hardik has been part of the team when, Ashwin bowled a no ball against West Indies, was it? And Bhuvi bowled a no ball against Pakistan in the Champions Trophy in big games, which really went on literally to cost India tournaments, right? And it happens. It's not because Bhuvi is a bad bowler or Ashwin is a bad bowler. Like, every bowler has bowled a no ball. Like, I haven't seen the stats. Is there a single bowler who's never bowled a no ball? Yes, sometimes it happens that you just have a terrible day, and it wasn't just the no balls, right? Arshdeep was bowling it on leg stump, outside leg stump. The ball wasn't moving for him. It was just one of those days, right? When your player is having that kind of a day, you have a quiet word with him, support him through it, and try and fix it in the nets, right? Like, he's definitely going to work on it. He's never going to bowl 5 no balls again, right? I remember reading, I think it was to go to a completely different genre, like Sahil Bloom, who is one of these thinkers on Twitter and LinkedIn. He came up with a set of things, set of maxims to live your life by in 2023. And one of those maxims was, always give people a second chance, but never give them a third chance. So,
I like that.
Arshdeep, it's a good one. It's a good one. But I tried to put that back. Arshdeep, actually, this was a second chance, really, because, like you mentioned, he bowled a lot of no balls against South Africa in a T20 game, which India ended up winning. So this was the second chance. I think he will earn a third chance because India's fast bowling cupboards are pretty bare at the moment. And like you said, he was the bowler of the year and all of that. But you need to go back and fix these things, in the nets, in the dressing room, and not really in public. It's okay. I mean, it's fine. Help Harshdeep through this phase to come back stronger. And I think he'll come back a stronger bowler for this experience. So there you go.
No, he's shown, and as you said earlier, he's proved it for various teams in the IPL, and he was picked, Nitin, for that very, very specific role. Not so much about being a left armer, but for being able to come and rock up at the death and do well. Let's take this comment from Tony again. Hardik was great to watch from the stadium in the first match. He's expressive, but he was asking bowlers to bowl to the plan, and he'll take the blame if it goes wrong. Again, all these quotes, Tony, these quotes sound very, very good, but like Nitin mentioned, when a player has a bad day, do you put your arm around the guy, have a word in private, or whatever it is, you have options. Do you need to rock up to a press conference or a post-match conference and make those statements? I don't think so. I think Nitin has well addressed it. Just to pick up, Nitin, you said that the fast bowling stocks are actually looking bare. It's a bit of an alarming statement because for the last 5 years, so many of us talk about the depth. But the depth had. But you see someone, like an Umran Malik starts off shakily in Ireland and England, has now gotten better, but Bumrah is just making his way back. Bhuvneshwar, it seems that the team has moved on from him. Mohammad Shami is not in the T20 squad. All these young bowlers that we're talking about, great stories of how they get there. But like Kuldeep Sen plays one match and then he holds his back, So while the depth is there are problems. In this aspect, where do you see the young man who I'm going to bring up on our screens right here? He's done extremely well in a short span of time. I said last year that he's probably unlucky not to go to Australia. But when you're Umran Malik and you're clocking 155, and without taking names here, I know because we worked at Cricinfo at the same time when said bowlers were being rushed in and then they hit injuries. Do you play him as much as possible, or do you go down that route of wrapping him in cotton wool and playing him selectively?
I think Umran Malik is for want of a better word, a generational talent. I think a bowler from India who can hit those paces. He bowled the fastest recorded ball by an Indian bowler, I believe, in the first T20 game. We have had tearaway quicks in the past, right? This is not the first time we are seeing a tearaway quick. Of course, Umran is probably a few clicks faster. We've had Varun Aaron, we even had David Johnson back in the day, right? But their control was all over the place. Now, for someone who bowls at Umran's pace, his control is exemplary. We've seen it in the IPL. I think that spell he bowled to Shreyas Iyer will never be forgotten. And there were other spells as well, right? So he's a very, very special bowler. I actually want to go back and ask the Indian team management what is their thinking when they have a bowler of this kind, right? Now, every T20 team, every good T20 team has a gun fast bowler who bowls in the middle overs typically. Lockie Ferguson never gets the new ball for New Zealand, rarely bowls in the death. He mostly bowls out by the 17th over or so. And there are other examples, right? Harris Roth is another example. Bowls maybe an over in the death, but typically doesn't open the bowling, comes in the middle overs after Naseem and Shaheen have opened the bowling. Now, what does India want to do with Umran Malik? Yes, he is very fast. He is going to, his radar, even if it's little off, means that top edges are going to fly for six. We had that happen even yesterday. So what do you do to guard? I mean, why was he bowling in the death to start with, right? And this goes back, now the problem, and this ties back to the point you made. The cupboard is not barren, right? You do have a lot of talent. But if you have a lot of fast bowlers, in T20 cricket also you need to understand that a fast bowler is either an enforcer who bowls hard lengths, or he's a slog over specialist, or he's a new ball bowler, right? And you've seen someone like a Dhoni, for instance, in IPL, do a very good job in identify who bowls at what stage in an innings. Sometimes with the Indian team, I get the feeling that they don't really know. They don't really have a great plan going in. And if, I know yesterday was an exception because Arshdeep had a terrible day and you could not bowl out all his overs, which meant someone else had to step up. But you can't really judge Umran Malik for going for runs in the death overs. His bowling will go for runs in the death overs because that's what it is, right? On a good day, he will nail 3 Yorkers and get you a couple of wickets as well for cheap. But it's 50-50 whether those Yorkers end up, becoming high full tosses or, half volleys. And if they do, then they go for runs at his pace, right? So the team needs to decide how to use him. I don't think they should put him in cotton wool at all. I think they should unleash him as much as possible in T20 cricket. But have clear roles in place for your fast bowlers. For every bowler. The previous game you had Akshar Patel bowl the 20th over. Like, what was the thinking there, right? I know Hardik was probably carrying an injury, didn't want to bowl the last over. But, I mean, you can keep saying, yeah, these are side games, we're trying to test our players. But ultimately, you also want to simulate real match situations that you'll face in a tournament, right? You got away with the win in that first game. But really, Akshar Patel could have very easily lost that game for India. Nearly bowled a couple of wides. The last ball could have gone for 6. It was just a miss hit, right? So a team really needs to get those things right, in my opinion. Yeah.
No,
a long-winded answer, but that's my thinking.
And Nitin, the answer is not going to come. Forget us. The answer is not going to come to many, many people who will even go and put a mic in the coach and the captain's face. But yeah, you're right. I mean, let's start with the over from Akshar. It's not something we've seen before very often, and you're not going to see it very often again because it is a risk. Bowling a spinner at the end. I mean, Pakistan tried it, Babar Azam tried it, and it didn't work out against India. And one more wide, you got to see who you're facing, right? Like Karunaratne, these guys can tonk the ball, right? One bad shot, chalo ho jayega wo. But Umran Malik, and I said it on a glance show a few times, when you have that, like you said, that generational fast bowler, we've seen many people like Munaf Patel, Varun Aaron, these guys come there quick. Before we know it, unfortunately, injury sets them back, right? Before any such injury, and let's hope it doesn't come, but if it's around the corner and it's going to set back someone like an Umran Malik, like you said, unleash him, see what's possible rather than that, shayad usko khilana chahiye tha. Just go for it, right? Shivam Mavi takes 4 for 22 on debut. Yesterday, I think he gave more runs, if not as many runs as Umran Malik, right? And he doesn't bowl at that pace. So these are the days when your plan A, your plan B, they go off kilter. You need to make the right call. And as you said, bowling Umran Malik at the death is a mistake because a set batsman like a Shanaka, he might get troubled once. But Shanaka has the license, Nitin, to go after him at the death, which he would not have against an Umran Malik or a Lockie or a Mark Wood in, say, the 11th or the 13th over. Like, aakhri over mein aapko balla to chalana hi hai. And his pace, even a miss hit, is going to go for 6. So rightly you said you need to find roles for these players. Another player whose role I'm not so sure is identified. Let's switch tracks to the batting now because we discussed the bowlers. I'm going to bring up this guy here on our screen. I think he, at one point, he was looking to me like an all-format player. But T20 mein, he's not been able to crack the code. And I'm not just saying this, Nitin, based on his KKR type performances. Overall, he just doesn't have that hitter wala factor, right? He's got a chance finally because the people aren't around. Where do you see him? I think they shouldn't be wasting time on Shubman Gill, not being disrespectful. He's a much better player for Test. He could be a World Cup opener in 10 month time, but T20 made that spot. I think, Nitin, that spot should be going to someone else.
I love how you said KKR Wali stats because just like all of us, we are all inundated with too much cricket. So just to remind you, he played for Gujarat Titans in the last season and he had a great season, by the way, right? So even I was wondering, why is Shubman Gill in the T20 team really, right? कोई logic ही नहीं है. Ruturaj has been smashing it in the domestic tournaments, and there have been others, right? There have been a bunch of players really. So when I saw Shubman Gill front up in the first game, I was wondering, ये क्या मतलब क्या vibes में select किया है इसको? Then I went back and because we don't remember, memories are short. I went back and saw, okay, what did he? I just went back and saw what did Gill do in the IPL, right? So I have it in front of me. He scored 483 runs last year at a strike rate of 132, which is not bad, right? 51 fours and 11 sixes. So overall, it was a fairly good tournament for Gill. And if you look at the contenders for that spot, right, Ruturaj did not have a great season. 368 runs, strike rate of only 126, partly because CSK had a terrible season. I feel they weren't sure what way they were going. I think Conway and he sort of hit some sort of a momentum towards the latter stages of the tournament. So we leave it at that, right? So fair call there that he probably earned his right to play ahead of Ruturaj at least. But to your point, Gill has been playing now multiple formats, right? Got to play in the test matches in Bangladesh as well. He's played a few one-dayers. To me, it looks like he's still finding his groove in international cricket. There have been a few soft dismissals in the test matches as well and in the one-dayers that we've seen him play. Given what he's been going through, I probably would not have played him in the T20s. Yeah. And I know that when you talk about T20s, you will always look at IPL, but you cannot ignore what has been happening in domestic cricket. And Ruturaj Gaikwad's exploits in the last 3-4 months, right? He's been racking up numbers like nobody's business. And he's an opener, right? I thought he probably earns the right, especially given he also got the orange cap, 16 months back in the IPL. There's so many IPLs happening now that you lose track of that also. But you literally had 2 IPLs in.
But that is you're selecting a player not just on what he did. Yes, Shubman Gill had a very good IPL this time, for the team that goes and wins. But Rituraj had a huge impact when CSK did well 2 years ago, right? And even the domestic cricket, he scored some 4 or 5. He and Venkatesh Iyer were like going back and forth for most runs in Vijay Hazare the year before, right? So it is a larger pool. But even beyond the stats, sometimes you just take a look at a player and say, yeah, it's not adding up, right? Now you're talking about 480 runs at 132, but to me, just looking at him, he falls in that KL Rahul what a category. Whoa, you want that madness of a Pant or a madness of a Ishan Kishan or just that's something, right?
No, and I'm going to mention that one name which has been doing the rounds for the wrong reasons recently, which is Prithvi Shaw. I really don't know what's going on with him. There have been some things being said about Prithvi Shaw and some things that have not been said. I don't know, man. Like the guy is, again, I hate to use that word twice in one show, but again, a generational talent. Every single IPL season, he goes at 150 strike rate. He's one guy who doesn't care about, he comes from Mumbai, but when he's playing T20s, he's not playing the Kaduz Mumbai brand of cricket. He's there to score runs fast. And he scores. Yeah, I know that he has his technical limitations, right? Everybody does, but this is T20 cricket. You hit through the line, you could be a Jason Roy and you'll do well, right? You need to back those players. I completely agree. I would not have drafted Gill as my first choice opener, especially as you're trying to move into the next phase and you have so many anchors, right? There are so many anchors in Indian cricket. You don't need another anchor at the top. Yeah, I like Kishan at the top. I would have loved to see him bat with either Ruturaj or with Prithvi Shaw.
Well said. Tony's still sticking around. Thank you, Tony. Bumrah is coming back now. Yes, Bumrah is coming back, my friend. He's going to be in the one days. How much he plays, I'm not going to even wager to comment on that because we've seen he's selected, he doesn't play. But yes, the good news is that he's back. But I just think let's all be patient with him. Let's not expect Bumrah level things for the next few weeks. Let's see. I don't think he'll manage to play all 4 test matches against Australia. If he gets in there, fantastic. But just sticking to one more player whose name has also been doing the round.
Just on the Bumrah point, I think Bumrah is at that stage in his career where he probably should let one format go, especially given the injury troubles he's had. We definitely want Bumrah to play Test cricket, I think, as much as possible. There's a World Cup here, so okay, let him play this World Cup. But after this one day World Cup, he has to choose between T20 and ODIs. And at least until the ODI World Cup, I would not play him in any T20 games. If possible, I'd get him to skip the IPL, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen.
No, but I would, in a World Cup year, see it as his last hurrah. He's young, he has miles left in the tank, but like you said, he's injury prone now. And one more serious injury, you may lose him for all three formats. So on the Bumrah issue, let's not play him in T20s, and that's why he's coming back in the one day format. But very very quickly, Deepak Hooda, I like what I see here. Yes, he goes up and down. He plays in Ireland, gets 100. He's one of those players who unfortunately will have to make way when the bigger players come around. But just in terms, let's say Virat Kohli, like Bumrah, at some point in the next 12 months, takes the call to set aside one format. Let's say hypothetically that format is the T20 format. Suddenly you have that number 3 spot vacated. Do you think this is a place where Hooda could thrive? Or maybe put Sky up to 3, because we've seen when Sky does Sky things, you want him facing more balls. How do you see this guy on screen?
Oh, I absolutely want Sky to come in at 3. And I know the Virat Kohli conversation is happening. I think Kohli is actually denying Sky access to the number 3 slot. And it's only fair that Sky gets it sooner than later, right? Again, Hooda, I think initially he was picked because he brings in the option of bowling off spin, but I don't think he's bowled a single over for India. Maybe he's bowled 1 or 2 and got tonked. Very few. So he's really playing as a batsman. Again, a limited batsman in the sense that if the ball is doing a little bit, he's going to struggle. We saw that against South Africa in the T20 World Cup where he was all at sea. We also have Rahul Tripathi now, who has made his debut. Again, a very justifiable selection, someone who scored very well in the IPL. Also a good all-round fielder, which is, a fresh, which is very a relief to see when somebody comes through. But if Hooda doesn't bowl, Hooda and Tripathi are actually very similar players. Again, both are right-handers, both have the ability to go over the top, and they hit in sort of similar zones as well. Yeah. So I go back to the team, right? Your cupboard is full, but if it is full of the same sort of players, why are you stacking your team with all of them, right? What are the roles you're looking for? And that's the other problem, right? You want Sky now to go to 3. By the way, even Sky 3 years back for Kolkata Knight Riders used to play as a finisher because they did not have a role for him at the top of the order. He's earned his right now to move to the top. But if your best players will play closer to the top of the order, which means everyone who's playing in their IPL teams at 3 and 4 and doing well now need to start playing at 5, 6, 7, and they're not really cut out for it. Hooda is not a finisher, right? So I don't know. I don't know where these guys fit. A good player and all of that, right? But I don't know where he'll fit in 11. Yeah.
While you were talking, I just put up a poll for our viewers. It's a very tough one. Where should Hooda bat, 3 or 5? Because these are the 2 places where I think he's got the longest run. 100% of our viewers are saying number 5 again. But like Nitin just said, the guy is naturally not number 5 batsman. He scored over 450 runs for Lucknow, batting primarily at 3 and some 4, and it was that season that forced his hand into getting selected. But when he's not given that run, I just feel it becomes unfair on the player itself. And yes, you have to adapt. I mean, I go back to Venkatesh Iyer, gets into the team because of one very good season opening for KKR, but then he's told, Hardik Pandya aajkal nahi hai, tumko jaake middle mein karna padega. The guy goes back to domestic, bats at 5 for MP, scores 500s there, and then after a few matches is then, sort of discarded. So it's not as straightforward as go and bat in a certain place. You might just not get playing time, and that unfortunately is just the nature of the beast here.
Venkatesh Iyer, by the way, had half a good IPL season, not one IPL season. He had half a good IPL season. Once the IPL came back to India, he failed. So I just want to call that out. Yeah.
No, that's true. That's true. And again, he did get his chances because for the longest time, we didn't know what in the world was going on with Hardik Pandya. Will he, won't he? Is he at the NCA? So obviously you do well, you get that chance. But why I'm leading sort of back to Hardik Pandya is that Gautam Gambhir said a couple of days ago that India need to find a replacement for Hardik Pandya. Now since the Kapil Dev era, we've heard about this need for the next Kapil Dev. It was a term coined at Cricinfo, the former future Kapil Dev. You know about it. But do we actually need to invest time looking for such a rare talent? Or like you just said a few minutes ago, should you not be trying to figure out, does a Tripathi work more or a Hooda? Why this obsession with trying to find the next of someone, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. In fact, good that you mentioned the good old Cricinfo days, right? If I were to go back to the mid '90s, one of the first players who was sort of spoken of in the same breath as Kapil Dev, people might find this strange, was Lakshmi Ratan Shukla. I don't know if you remember that.
Exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah, and then there was Ajit Agarkar, of course, who tried to live up to the promise for many years unsuccessfully, and then of course Irfan Pathan, who probably came closest to being the next
Correct.
Kapil Dev. Yeah, I don't know. Coincidentally, today is the day Kapil Dev broke Richard Hadley's record. So good callback,
There
right?
you go.
All those years back in 1993, I believe.
But yeah, it's just this, like things are going a certain direction, and we have this knack to sort of come back. I'm saying yes, Hardik Pandya also falls in that generational player category, but let him sort of figure out what he needs to do. How does he treat Umran, like in this picture? How does he treat Arshdeep Singh? I think we get caught up in trying to find the next. अरे अभी जो है उसको देखो वो कितना कर सकता है, right? First.
Yeah, fully agree. I think, yeah, you got to let go of history. And this goes back to that question of which Ajay Jadeja was asking, right? Is Hardik trying to change too many things too fast? You absolutely have to. Forget the past, move on. The reason India won the 2007 T20 World Cup was because they just didn't give a rat's ass for what of unparliamentary language, but yeah, they didn't give a rat's ass about the past, and they went and played their own version of the game. Yes, it was a time when nobody knew what to do in T20 cricket and all of that, but
True,
a
true.
new approach works. England, right, when they rebuilt their limited overs cricket in 2016, they threw away everything that was not working and started afresh, and that's what got them here. So absolutely.
And the names they threw away were like Stuart Broad, Jimmy Anderson, Ian Bell, Alistair Cook, which in a different format would be unthinkable from an England cricket perspective. But very, very apt that you brought up that 2007 as well as the 2015 England reference, because you need to hit that rock bottom or the totally unaware of what's happening. India were unaware about T20. They didn't give a rat's ass, like you said. England had hit rock bottom in 2015, and that was the catalyst for change. Let's hope, but I know this is also a one-day World Cup, so I also hope, as much as we talk about T20s, thoda team management, Rahul Dravid sir, Rohit Sharma, Hardik, start to focus on the one-day World Cup. It's in about 10 months, and this team, it's a home World Cup. I think a separate show is required just on that. But Nitin, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for joining. Always a pleasure hearing you. Keep doing good things. Keep up your podcast, and yeah, we'll see you again at some point.
Thank you so much for having me, Jamie. And sorry I let you do all the scoring initially without contributing at the other end. But glad to have come in and
But
really
you
enjoyed
came,
this.
you came, you picked up the pace, and you got the boundaries in the depth. That's all that matters. So you take care, my friend. We'll be in touch. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.